Welcome to another STARS webinar. My name is David Earn. I'm Director of Programs and Communication at STARS. We have over 50 participants joining today's webinar. Wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. Today we talk with STARS alumnus Prateek Basu about how agri-tech helps to feed the planet and fight climate change. Prateek is co-founder and CEO of SatSure, a decision analytics startup using satellites, remote sensing, machine learning, and big data analytics to provide solutions in the domains of agriculture, banking and financial services, infrastructure, and climate change mitigation. Prateek is a seasoned space industry professional with work experience on both the business and technology front. He received a Bachelor of Technology in Aerospace Engineering from the Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology and a Master of Science in Space Studies from the International Space University in Strasbourg. Good afternoon to you, Prateek, and thank you for speaking in this webinar.
Thank you so much, David, good morning, good afternoon to people who have joined. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you about how we at SatSure are working towards fighting climate change in the area of agri-tech. So I'll just be sharing my screen. David, maybe you can let me know when you can see the screen.
Yes, it looks good.
Great. So as mentioned by David, we are a decision intelligence company which was started in 2016 December, and we are currently having offices in Switzerland, India, UK, and Australia. Let me begin by first stating the problem that we are trying to solve. Just in India, which has a huge population, 1.4 billion as of now, we have less than 25% farmers who are covered through institutional credit. And for the 450 million plus population who are engaged directly in agriculture, they have only about 20% have protection of crop insurance. Now, consider the dynamics of agriculture in developing countries like India and also in Africa, Asia Pacific. Due to climate change, the frequency of droughts, pest and disease attacks, as well as the market volatility has increased tremendously, which inhibits their potential to increase their livelihood by being able to invest in farm or being able to recover from the shocks of events such as what we mentioned, droughts and floods, etc., to recover and go into the next season to again earn their livelihood. So especially when you look at incidents such as floods, cyclones, typhoons, these kind of disasters cost globally about $100 billion, risking hundreds of thousands of human life as well. And the entire aspect of climate change and its impact has made it more and more difficult to predict the intensity and frequency of disasters, which leads to the need of stronger data linkages. When I say why data, because data drives decisions. But when it comes to working in developing countries, especially in the domain of agriculture, the data that you are collecting from the field is manual, which means the accuracy levels are dubious. It's very expensive to do that because if you look at the land area, the infrastructure availability, it's very difficult for organizations to collect that data. So which means basically it's unscalable, and overall whatever data that we are getting is difficult to understand. So we have turned the table around at SatSure by combining the knowledge of agriculture, remote sensing, data science to create what we call as decision insights from space. Because space data has one unique feature. You can go back in time. You can't send a person or a drone back in time, but a satellite data has been available since last 30 years and it's archived well today. It's easily accessible. So by analyzing the images of land and changes in the land, we are able to assess a lot of different kind of features, but it also requires the other kind of data sets like weather. It requires data sets on agronomy. It requires a lot of incident reports from news, etc. So in all of this, we are at SatSure running a data factory, as we call it, where we crunch all of this data coming from different file formats and convert it into actionable insights on things like when to sow, how much, at what rate sowing is happening, what are the different areas under crops, what's the history of the crops patterns in terms of area, production changes, when the harvest windows are, what's the predicted yield, and stuff like that. So all of these insights are then plugged in automated data pipes today, in the form of spatial web dashboards, APIs, mobile applications, so that all the stakeholders in the agriculture value chain. When you say agriculture value chain, the stakeholders can be anywhere from the farmers to the governments. You have the agribusinesses, the food companies, the banks, insurers, and the traders as part of it. And the biggest challenge for them today, because of the impact of climate change, is how do you create the right plans? How do you bring more predictability in your operations by reaching the right places at the right time? And that's what today we are doing, using data from space and our deep insights of translating that data into information and combining that into decisions by creating a more proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. So just to you know give a context of how does it help people, how does this data translate into value for people. If this image is a representation of how today you would see different kinds of data. This is a satellite image based farm changes that we are detecting. What does it mean? I mean, as such in visualization is as good as nothing unless it tells things like when to sow, when to apply, whether to apply crop protection or not in the event of a potential pest or disease attack, where to lend, whom to lend. Because when you're looking at the challenges faced by financial services, governments, and all the stakeholders, they have these issues of um, not having enough data to understand the riskiness. So the perception of risk is where we are hitting using our services. And some of the key value that we have created, I'll be sharing in the next coming slides. So let's start with a case study. This is on agribusiness agility. So here, the stakeholders for us were companies who are selling irrigation equipment. Now, water is a very important component of agriculture, and unfortunately, it's agriculture sector which consumes the maximum amount of water, which is a scarce resource today. So what we were doing is identifying the areas where, first of all, surface and groundwater availability is unknown, and then creating the database for it, providing them information on the water usage patterns in these areas, and then helping the helping the stakeholders to reach the farmers, advise them on using water better, as well as incentivizing them, because farmers, they have water and power available for free today because it's subsidized by the government. But we know that in order to combat the effect of climate change, we have to conserve these resources. So we help out these stakeholders in improving their rural marketing and operations, by helping them strategize on targeting different regions. Within those regions, we could help them in onboarding the farmers, doing an assessment of their lands, and also once the onboarding has happened, we can monitor these farms without having to visit it all the time, because there are satellites which are able to visit all of these farms once a week without having to add any cost today, thanks to European Space Agency's open data program. Today, satellite is as good as an IoT in space. Another interesting case study is our work with one of the largest banks in India. This bank has about $3 billion of crop loans portfolio, and we are monitoring 1 million square kilometer on a weekly basis. Imagine how many people would be required to do weekly visits for 1 million square kilometers of area. We are able to do that, and we have in the last 2 years of our engagement helped this bank add 84,000 new farmers to their books. These are all small holding farmers, and that has been reached by only adding 10% more staff. So essentially, we have added to the capacity, the efficiency, help them increase the revenue, help them reach the right farmers. And once they are reaching the farmers, we are also helping the farmers select options of what suits them better, what kind of financial product, what kind of agriculture chemicals product suits them better, rather than leaving everything to intuition and fate. So with this small introduction to our work, a couple of case studies, I would like to also just introduce the team that goes behind it. We are a small one, 34 people spread across 4 countries with more than 150 years of experience across domains such as satellite remote sensing, data science, AI, software engineering, and present currently in 3 continents. One interesting statistics I just kept it is that 40% of our team comprises of women, which is quite high for a tech company, but I think it's still low for us because I think it should be 50-50%. And as part of our work in the last 3.5 years, we have enabled more than 2 million farm loans. We have helped settle claims for almost 400,000 farmers and been recognized by some of the key international organizations, whether it's World Bank, Asian Development Bank, World Economic Forum, or so on. So thank you so much again. I come to the end of my presentation, and I hope that I get a lot of questions, which I'll be more than happy to answer.
Just a second. Thank you very much, Pradeep, for this brief introduction and overview. If anyone has a question for Pradeep, please use the Q&A feature below to type in your question. As there is no question yet, I will take the privilege to go first. In your presentation, you mentioned various technologies that SatSure deploys to help farmers. So I'm wondering, today, what are the key technologies in agri-tech, and what breakthroughs in digital technology do you see as having the biggest potential to positively impact the agricultural sector in the next few years?
Right. So the key technologies, I think, would be slightly different, let's say, from a European context and Asia Pacific Africa context, because the first layer of technology that is most important in agriculture is connectivity, and we unfortunately don't have connectivity in rural areas across most of the developed countries. That is the backbone. Once that comes, then there is digitization. So digitization, which means basic processes of supply and demand, exchange of goods, the noting down of information, that is missing. Once that is also available, then comes the role of IoT and satellites and any other kind of platform economics to connect the forward and backward part of the markets. So for us at SatSure, we see satellites becoming the de facto source tool, technology tool to be applied in agriculture across the globe because of the scale of data collection and data analysis that it offers. While the current shortcomings of it are the accuracy of around it, the availability of data around it, which can be obviously overcome by more and more collaborative effort of development, because at the end of the day, the models that are being developed on data extracted from satellite is as good as the inputs that you are getting from the field, right? So we have to improve that entire data collection process in order to improve the models. Then I believe satellites have a very big role to play in agri-tech globally, followed by IoT, because it's not just open agriculture we are speaking of. We are also speaking of greenhouses. We are speaking of any kind of closed agriculture where precision farming, for example, requires tools such as drones and IoT. So I also should have added drones. So the second most important thing I would say is drones and IoT, which assists farmers to do things like variable rate farming, take actions on the field faster than they could using others. So I hope
as far as I understand, As far as I understand, the main resource then for Satchore's work is data, a lot of data, which is then combined with the corresponding number crunching power and AI to make sense of it. So what are the challenges of obtaining this resource, of getting the right kind of data, the right quality of data? Are there any restrictions around how you can use it? In other words, what are the challenges around the commercialization of this data?
Right. I think your question also feeds in with another question from the audience, from Tobias. So um, the, the the first challenge of collecting the data is the data from the ground, not data from space, because to answer Tobias also, satellite images today are available for free up to a resolution of 10 meters, meaning that 1 pixel of an image is a 10 by 10 meter square. So if you look at all such open data initiatives from Europe, from China, from US, there's a lot of data. But the actual challenge comes in making sense out of that data. Now, for that, you need to collect data from ground, which can be very tedious activity, which is where we have taken a very collaborative ecosystem approach of working in striking partnerships with other ag tech companies, with our clients, and exchanging data to rapidly improve our model accuracies. And the third part is translating the data and the insights into a usable product. Because if you look at just the satellite image part, let's say we are looking at a crop damage event. Uh, for a insurance company, that analysis is going to feed into how much claims to provide to the farmers who have lost the crop. For the farmer, that data is completely useless. for for a bank, that data is an indication, along with the historical cropping, as to when maybe the farmer could pay him back the loan or the EMI which is due. Similarly, for a seed and fertilizer company or a food company, that's an indication of the lack of demand that they are going to face, lack of demand they're going to face in the next season, and lack of supply or loss of supply in the current season. So that contextualization of the data insights as per the different stakeholders in the agri value chain is very, very, very important, which is right now, I would say, a work in progress globally.
We have another question from Srinath Rengarachan. He's a senior specialist at Oliver Wyman in Munich. He's asking, how do you see the potential for frugal technologies and local innovations complementing satellite data, given the connectivity issues you just mentioned?
Right. So I think it's the question a bit is at broad level. So we do we do work with agtech partners, as I mentioned, who are investing in frugal technologies in terms of irrigation management, in terms of providing advisories to localized farmers. So it's a very complementary approach because each and every data has a very different kind of value. The data that has been collected, let's say through surveys with farmers, is very much important to advise a small set of farmers. The data that we are collecting from the space needs to be combined with this particular other data set in order to scale that initiative. So think of satellites and AI as a scaling initiative, not as a very hyper local intervention. So that's the intervention part where the frugal technologies and local innovations start complementing.
We have another question from Kapil Regmi. He's a STARS alumnus from Nepal and director of the Advanced College of Engineering and Management. He's asking whether you also invest abroad in partnership with local levels.
Yes, absolutely. We do invest in partnerships everywhere because without that, it's very difficult to scale and understand the local context of the market. For example, in India alone, we have 56 agtech partners. Beyond India, we have partners in Africa, in Southeast Asia, and obviously we'll be very much happy to partner in neighboring countries such as Nepal as well.
There's a question from Ashish Shah. He's a product manager at the Dwara Trust in Hyderabad. He's writing, what are the challenges you see in plot level monitoring, specifically in India? As you mentioned, you are already providing services to banks at village level. Do you think monitoring at plot level will give you more accuracy and help banks in credit assessment at the time of onboarding?
Right. So I would say the opposite. Actually, this is question specific to India, which is why I'm saying it should be the opposite. Because in India, till date, 11 states land records have been digitized, along with the ownership transfer of information of those land records. So when you are working with a bank, they are not limited to lending in those regions. Number one. Number two is from a remote sensing perspective. When you are doing a plot level analysis, the underlying layer of land use, land cover should also be very high resolution. Otherwise, the accuracy of the estimates at the plot level could very well go down if you are using the freely available data. So you either you invest in a very highly expensive high resolution data, or you slightly increase the geographic level. But if you're operating in a price sensitive market like India, the high resolution data approach may not work out that well.
We have a very general question from our executive chairman, Tony. He's asking, where are you? Where is Sature in 5 years? What's your vision? What are the milestones you would like to reach within the next 5 years?
Right. So thank you for that question, Tony. It's as a company, we look to be a full stack satellite image analytics company providing decisions and decision intelligence across different sectors. While this presentation was focused on agri-tech, we work in areas beyond agri-tech as well, because our core competency, our team's core competency is on space technology. So when people say in India that, when it comes to space, the first word that comes to them is ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization. 5 years from now, when they think of space, they should also say Sature, because we are the ones who are commercializing the assets which our national space program is sending in space, and creating societal and economic value. That's where I see ourselves.
I'd like to zoom in a bit more on some aspects around climate change to better understand the role that agri-tech can play. So generally speaking, can you give us, or more specifically, can you give us some examples how agri-tech can help to fight climate change?
Right. See, climate change is a very broad phenomenon. What we are seeing today in terms of unusually high temperatures, high frequency of natural events, those are the impacts of climate change. So we are basically the generation living through the first actual impact of climate change being felt. Now, the sector which is most impacted is agriculture, I would say. Why? Because it defines the necessity, the first and foremost necessity of life, which is food. Because if we are not able to secure food for our people, then we definitely have a very bleak future. And that's where agri-tech comes in. How to adapt, how to help farmers and all stakeholders within the agriculture value chain to adapt to climate change and still be able to grow sustainably, be able to grow sufficiently, and also be able to enhance the economic value that they are deriving from the land, because we are also speaking of very, very small farm holders who have less than 1.5 hectare of land holding. So the land is the only source of their livelihood, and climate change is eroding their ability to earn money and get a better livelihood. So agri-tech, I believe, addresses all of these critical challenges for us as humanity.
I read that 1/3 of the Earth's area is degraded and already not fit to grow crops of any kind. So can you give us some example? What can technology do to help to make these areas fit for agriculture again?
Right. So I think that kind of problem requires more than just data-based technologies. So, for example, one needs to have investment in machinery, investment in research on soil mechanics, in order to kind of provide the inputs of how to again rejuvenate the land and make it fertile for growing crops. Some of the reasons why this kind of phenomenon happens is because of overuse of fertilizers, chemicals, etc., which degrades the microbe holding capacity in the soil. So soil is the most important aspect, along with water, I would say. And technology and research both have a very big role, are already having a big role in doing in addressing the land degradation issues.
You just mentioned water, and I read that agriculture is also the largest user of the world's freshwater resources. I believe it makes up for 70% of water usage globally. How can agritech help to use water more efficiently?
Right. Yeah, agriculture is not just the most the biggest user of freshwater resources. It's also the source of the biggest source of carbon emissions. Just for your information, because in agriculture we are not only speaking of crops, we're also speaking of livestock. So the aspect around water conservation is not impressed upon the farmers unless they are either secured of their earnings, or they are incentivized to reduce the usage of water. So crops like rice, they are very water intensive crops, and it's the de facto again crop across Asia Pacific, India, right? However, the cultural nature of farming, it's it's very traditional. People use certain land management techniques like watering the fields continuously. Those those can only be changed when there is enough research to prove that by using less water, the yield and the production will not reduce. While that has been already done, the capacity building or the skilling of farmers is something that is not yet done. So while there are technologies today to make irrigation more efficient, and provide farmers with regular inputs of when to water, and how much to water, or what is the even carbon footprint that you're getting. The adoption of it is a challenge because there is no incentive for the farmers to do these, and also there is no assurance that if they do this, there is a market for them to still go and sell their produce. So it's a very multifaceted problem, to be honest.
If we look at deforestation, since the year 2000, industrial agriculture has been responsible for 80% of the deforestation on the planet. So how can agritech help in this area?
Right. So there is a term called agroforestry, which is essentially creating more and more sustainable practices of agriculture without degrading the forest. These are the places. This is a domain where international organizations like Food and Agriculture Organization, World Bank, etc., are investing a lot of money. So the idea is how again it comes to land management practices where people keep on shifting their agriculture land. They sow for maybe 3 seasons, then they burn the land, then they go to another part, they cut the forest. So this is something which has happened more and more because of the traditional nature of agriculture. And one of the ways in which these organizations are assisting in creating more and more sustainability aspects around it is by enhancing the sources of income for agriculture beyond just land and the crops, like investing in inland fisheries, doing capacity building for farmers to breed these fishes, sell it to the markets. So it's a combination of a lot of things, access to markets as well as access to knowledge. When both of these are combined, then only the change happens. Technology plays a role in both of these aspects, thankfully. And we are already seeing a lot of changes happening in this part of the world.
The trend of agricultural intensification has also led to a massive reduction in biodiversity. What role can technology play there to help reverse this trend?
Yeah, I can't comment on the reversibility of it. I'm not the expert on biodiversity. But yeah, we are working on quite a few sustainability projects at Satshare where conservation efforts by looking at the changes that have happened uh, in in the species of trees of flora fauna uh, is being mapped to understand where exactly the changes are the highest to design the interventions, because we have to have a spatial understanding of these changes, right? At aggregate level we can say 17% or whatever 20% or whatever number has reduced, but where has it reduced, that information is very important. That's where the technologies such as satellites play a big role, because it helps in the program design of where the intervention has to be taken. Next is what intervention do you take? So for example, how do you reclaim back the forest? For that you need to provide some kind of income source or livelihood to the people who are living in those areas, right? So it's a combination of data technology, design of these programs, and the way these are executed. So this is something which is which has got a lot of public attention and funding in the last few years, I would say last decade or so. And I hope that our next generation lives in a more connected, not connected, I would say connected with nature, but
We've already run out of time, but I have two final questions, if you allow.
sure.
Okay. After all that you've said today, it seems common sense to conclude that the adoption of sustainable agriculture is the only way forward. So what do you see as the biggest obstacle to adopt sustainable agriculture? Is it more expensive? Is it a lack of knowledge? What is holding it back?
Three things. One of the two already you mentioned, lack of knowledge is one. Lack lack of technology penetration is also one, because even for a company which is doing 1 million square kilometers analysis on a weekly basis like us, we are unable to address each and every person within that 1 million square kilometers, right? The third part is, I would say, the policy and financial initiatives, because people will only be pushed to make a change in their behavior if there is an incentive around it. So that's the essence of understanding the behavioral economics in farming, and how to use that in order to tackle the impact of climate change. So one of the things could be creating more and more green financing initiatives. We are financing the land. Why don't we finance farmers also based on their usage of water and the kind of practices they are following in terms of the land management? Because then the farmer knows that if I'm, let's say, getting $1,000 or a $1,500 loan, and this is, I'm speaking of small farmers, they may get additional $500 loan if they are transforming their or changing their practices. The third part is the market access part. So when we are looking at agriculture which is done sustainably, we need to also provide sufficient market access for farmers to command a better price for it, because it is definitely more expensive to do sustainable farming today, as of today. And only if that market incentive is there, which can be driven by food companies, which also needs a lot of quality assurance, standardization across that post-harvest management chain. I believe these three put together could potentially address issues of transforming into a sustainable agriculture uh, technique globally. Yeah.
Final question. Despite all these challenges that you just mentioned, what gives you hope that these obstacles will be overcome rather sooner than later?
The fact that this is not a local issue, this is a global issue. Just take the instance of this particular session where we have people from all over the world joining who are interested to listen to this. So that itself shows that we are today connected by a single problem, which is climate change. And definitely everyone is, we as a small part of this global ecosystem, we are seeing a lot more proactiveness from governments, corporates, and non-governmental organizations to work together, understand each other's problems, and try to address this, because this is no more a personal ambition kind of thing. There is a certain purpose behind sustainability now.
On that positive note, I would like to thank you very much, Prateep, for your time and for sharing your insights with us. Thank you, Prateep.
Thank you.
I would also like to thank all our alumni who participated in this webinar. In the next STARS webinar on September 11, in a week from now, we will talk with Jan Jenisch, CEO of LafargeHolcim, the global leader in building materials and solutions, about his personal lessons learned as a top C-level leader and his vision of how the role of leaders is changing. I hope to see you there. In the meantime, take care and stay healthy. Thank you and goodbye.